Welcome back. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth remains, and there really is no other word for it, defiant over this whole story we've been talking about for 35 minutes now. Here's what he said last night, and importantly, right after that is what the journalist who actually was in this group chat said in response.
Nobody was texting war plans.
No, that's a lie. He was texting war plans. He was texting attack plans. When targets were going to be targeted, how they were going to be targeted.
And there you have it. I want to bring in our political reporter panel, Stephanie Lai and Reese Gorman. Stephanie is White House correspondent for Bloomberg. Reese is politics reporter for NOTUS. Remember, NOTUS, News of the U.S. It's great to have you both with us. I want to read to you something just handed to me during the commercial break. It is a letter to the President of the United States from Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader. I'll read excerpts from it. The most important is in the first sentence. Pete Hegseth is the most unqualified Secretary of Defense in American history. It goes on to say, his behavior shocks the conscience, risked American lives, and likely violated the law. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth should be fired immediately. And he adds sincerely, as if there was any doubt. Stephanie, it's been the dominant story, and I know that there are those in the audience who sometimes correctly blame Washington for overanalyzing a story that doesn't seem to resonate outside of the Beltway. But this one feels like it is worthy of a lot of attention and could have implications for the current composition of the Trump administration.
Certainly. And I think to your point, it does resonate with so many people because many of us have made the same mistake of adding someone to the wrong group chat or sending the wrong text message to the wrong person. And so what we're
hitting reply all. Uh-oh. Never mind.
And the national security implication here is very pressing. The fact that there are military plans being sent to a journalist. But I will say that this leak is very different than what we've seen in the first Trump administration. Those were much more deliberate. It was sources planting stories to potentially knife a different person in the back. This one was purely an accident.
Reese, your thoughts?
Yeah, to her point, this does happen quite a bit. Sadly, I've never been added to any classified group chats in my reporter career. But this does seem
There's always hope, though, right?
Maybe one day. But this does seem to resonate, especially on the Hill. Roger Wicker, chairman of Senate Armed Services, came out and basically said that they are going to look into this. Thune said there could be a Senate Majority Leader. So
and I'm really glad you brought that up, Reese, because Roger Wicker has said this in public. I took a tremendous political risk leading my committee and my reputation and prestige on behalf of Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense. And this is embarrassing, at minimum.
Yeah, and this is why, this Hegseth was one of the most controversial of Trump's
not just controversial, but there were genuine questions that I talked to Republicans who privately felt the heat from President Trump. They felt the echoing heat of the Trump social media universe, but they doubted whether Hegseth had the requisite knowledge base to be defense secretary. The skills, quite separate from his personal behavior, of which a lot of scrutiny was given.
Yeah,
that was an undercurrent of that whole confirmation hearing as well.
100%.
And now you have this.
Yeah, and then you could also tell this too, because Hegseth wasn't even the one that added the journalist to the chat. It was Michael Waltz. But because of Hegseth and these questions surrounding him, he seems to be the one that is getting most of the scrutiny on this because of just the questions swirling him from time he was nominated to his confirmation hearing, even to now. It seems to be that a lot of this focus is on Hegseth because he also was the one allegedly who shared these classified plans in the Signal group chat.
I want to play for you both some sound from earlier today on Capitol Hill from California Democrat Ted Lieu. And I think when you listen to this, you'll see that that was kind of a motivating factor probably to this letter that I just read from the House Minority Leader, Democrat Hakeem Jeffries from New York. Let's listen to Ted Lieu.
These are reckless actions by Secretary of Defense. And he also made it worse. Instead of accepting responsibility, he lied to the American people. He said this was our hoax. Hegseth needs to resign, and everyone on that text chain needs to go take some courses on how to deal with national security.
So, Stephanie, we are deeply accustomed from our experience in the first Trump presidency and for the early days now that outside pressure from Democrats, outside pressure from reporters who are scrutinizing things tends not to penetrate this White House. It just doesn't.
It doesn't.
They have a huge deflector shield. It just bounces off.
Right.
And the president's demeanor today was subdued, but he wasn't lashing out at anyone.
Yeah, and I think if you look at how the White House responded in the immediate aftermath of it, it really does go back to their usual playbook. They'll deflect the severity of the issue at hand. They'll then try to discredit the journalist who is raising the issue, and then they try to move on. That they're downplaying the fact that there were actual military and U.S. government intelligence that was being shared on this Signal chat, and that's been their go-to since that.
And Reese, there's also something said by the White House today, which I think is important, and we've talked about it, is, hey, the big story here is we have been more aggressively going after the Houthis, trying to deter them from harassing global shipping through the Red Sea, and that's the story.
Yeah.
That's what matters. We're different than Biden. We're much harder. Also reflective in this text chain. Blame Biden. Support us.
It is remarkable spin that they're like, oh no, this text change actually just shows how thoughtful we were in this process.
How thoughtful and how willing we are to debate these things internally.
Everyone spins, every politician spins, but that is remarkable spin. That's like the story is not y'all like how thoughtful you were in this process. The story is that a reporter was inadvertently imagine if it wasn't a reporter, if it was, say, like, I don't know, anybody else who maybe did not have as good of intentions as Goldberg did,
right,
who could have leaked this information elsewhere, could have sold this information before. There was a whole lot of things that could have gone wrong, and thankfully for them, it was a reporter who waited until after the attack to actually report on this information.
And all right, Stephanie Lai, Reese Gorman, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming in.